When you think of ancient Rome, images of gladiators, emperors, and aqueducts probably spring to mind. But did you know that Roman mastery of shipbuilding played a crucial role in the empire's success? While the Romans weren't the first civilization to build seafaring vessels, they took shipbuilding to new heights. They created a huge variety of ships ranging from small fishing boats to massive grain ships and powerful war galleys. These ships weren't just good-looking, they were also incredibly functional and durable. So how did the Romans do it? What made their ships so special? And why were they so important to the Roman Empire? Stay tuned as we dive into the fascinating world of Roman shipbuilding and explore the secrets behind their most famous ships. You won't want to miss this. The success of Rome as a Mediterranean superpower was due in no small part to its mastery of shipbuilding. While the Romans were not the first to build seafaring vessels, they developed and refined shipbuilding techniques to meet both commercial and military needs. This led to the creation of a diverse fleet of ships that facilitated trade, exploration, and conquest across the Mediterranean and beyond. Now, before we get into the details, let's talk about the wood used in Roman shipbuilding. The Romans used a variety of wood types for their ships, including pine, fir, cedar, and cypress. These woods were chosen for their strength, durability, and flexibility, which were essential qualities for ships that would be exposed to the harsh conditions of the open sea. Pine, in particular, was a favorite of Roman shipbuilders due to its strength and availability. The trees were typically grown in forests near the coast, making it easy to transport them to shipyards. The wood was also lightweight, which helped to make the ships faster and more maneuverable. However, there were also downsides to using pine. The wood was not as water-resistant as some other types, so the ships required regular maintenance to prevent leaks. Additionally, pine trees were susceptible to certain types of rot, which could compromise the structural integrity of the hull. Despite these challenges, Roman shipbuilders were able to mitigate the risks by using techniques such as using double layers of planks for the hull and using metal fasteners to hold the planks together. Overall, the use of pine and other high-quality woods helped to ensure that Roman ships were well suited to the demands of seafaring. The construction of Roman ships was a highly skilled and intricate process that involved a number of steps. One of the first steps in building a Roman ship was laying the keel, which was the backbone of the vessel. The keel was a large, heavy piece of wood that was placed along the bottom of the ship to provide stability and support. It was then fastened to the ribs of the ship, which were curved pieces of wood that ran vertically from the keel to the deck. Once the ribs were in place, planks were added to the ship's hull. These planks were typically made of pine wood and were fastened together using a mortise-and-tenon joint. This type of joint is still used today for its strength and durability. The planks were also angled slightly upward at the bow and stern of the ship to help it cut through waves more easily. After the hull was completed, the interior of the ship was strengthened with internal framing, which consisted of beams and planks that ran across the width of the ship. This helped to give the ship its shape and allowed for the attachment of other components such as the masts and rigging. To make sure the planks were watertight, the joints between them were filled with a sealant made of pitch and fiber. This sealant was applied using a special tool called a caulking gun, which was essentially a plunger made of wood or bone that was used to force the sealant into the gaps between the planks. Finally, the ship was ready to be launched. The process of launching a ship was a major undertaking that required a lot of manpower and coordination. The ship was first rolled down a ramp into the water. This ramp was often built directly into the hillside and was designed to allow the ship to gradually descend into the water without capsizing. Once the ship was in the water, it was then maneuvered into position using long hooks and ropes. The entire process was carefully coordinated to make sure that the ship was launched safely and effectively. Now, let's dive deeper into the different types of ships that the Romans built and the unique features that made them stand out. We'll start with the merchant ships, which were responsible for transporting goods and resources throughout the Mediterranean. The most common type of merchant ship was the navis honoraria, which was a medium-sized vessel that was designed to carry a variety of goods. These ships had a wide hull that provided stability and a deep cargo hold that could be accessed through a hatch in the deck. The naos honoraria was typically equipped with 1 or 2 masts, which were used to support sails made of linen or canvas. These sails were used to harness the power of the wind and help propel the ship forward. The ship's speed and maneuverability were also aided by the use of oars, which were typically located along the sides of the hull. Now let's turn our attention to the military ships, which played a vital role in the Roman Empire's naval dominance. The Romans built a variety of warships, but two of the most important types were the trireme and the quinquereme. These ships were long, narrow vessels that were designed for speed and maneuverability rather than cargo capacity. The main difference between the two types was the number of oars that they had. A trireme had 3 banks of oars on each side of the hull, while a quinquereme had 5. This meant that the quinquereme was wider and more stable than the trireme, but it was also slower and more difficult to maneuver. Both types of ships had a narrow beam, which allowed them to move quickly through the water. They also had a high prow and stern, which helped them cut through waves and provided a smooth ride. Military ships were typically equipped with 1 or 2 masts, but the sails were much smaller than those used on merchant ships. This was because the primary means of propulsion was the oars, not the wind. The ships were also armed with a variety of weapons, including catapults, ballistae, and scorpion. These weapons were used to attack enemy ships or to defend against incoming attacks. Looking at some famous examples of Roman ships, the size of Roman ships varied depending on their intended use. Merchant ships could range in length from around 70 to 100 feet, while military ships were typically longer. The largest Roman ship ever discovered, the warship called the Rio de Janeiro, was over 150 feet long. The ships were also surprisingly tall, with some merchant vessels standing up to 40 feet tall when fully loaded. One of the most iconic features of Roman ships was their sails. The sails were typically made of linen or canvas and were attached to wooden masts that stood tall above the deck. The sails were triangular in shape and were designed to catch the wind and propel the ship forward. The art of navigation was an important part of Roman seafaring, and Roman sailors used a variety of tools to navigate the seas. These tools included things like astrolabes, which were used to determine latitude, and sundials, which were used to tell the time. Sailors also used landmarks and celestial navigation to help guide them on their journeys. Roman shipbuilding was not only innovative and advanced, but also highly organized. The construction of ships was a major industry in the Roman world, and there were specialized shipyards where ships were built and repaired. Shipbuilding was typically done by a team of skilled craftsmen who worked under the direction of a master shipbuilder. The master shipbuilder was responsible for overseeing the entire process of construction, from planning and design to assembly and launch. The shipbuilders themselves were skilled carpenters who were trained in the art of working with wood. They were responsible for cutting, shaping, and assembling the various components of the ship, including the keel, ribs, and planks. The construction of a Roman ship was a major undertaking that required a lot of time and effort. A small merchant ship might take several months to build, while a larger warship could take even longer. Despite the challenges, Roman shipbuilders were able to create some of the most advanced and sophisticated ships of their time. So what do you think? Were you impressed by the craftsmanship and skill of Roman shipbuilders? Do you have any other questions about ancient Roman technology or society? Let us know in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed learning about the amazing ships that ruled the seas during the Roman Empire. If you want to learn more about ancient Rome, check out our other videos on the channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on any of our future videos. It is hard to overstate the importance of the ocean in the rise of the Roman Empire. Its Mediterranean Sea was a literal highway that helped Rome expand from a small Italian peninsula into one of the largest empires in the ancient world. And while most people think about Rome's legions when it comes to this conquest, there is another factor that is essential to Rome's success. That is shipbuilding. In this episode of Let's Ship It, we're going to be looking at Roman shipbuilding. How Rome constructed some of the largest and most powerful ships in the ancient world, and how those ships powered the expansion of Rome and ensured its survival. To understand Roman shipbuilding, it's important to first understand why shipping was so important to Rome in the first place. And as with much of what we discuss here on this channel, the answer is both war and trade. As the Roman Republic began to expand beyond Italy, the need to project power and influence into these new territories required a capable navy. At the same time, as Rome integrated more and more territory into its system, it created an extensive web of trade routes that were vital to the Roman economy. For example, grain grown in Egypt could be shipped west to Rome to feed the growing population of the city. Wine from the Gauls, olive oil from Hispania, and luxury goods from the eastern provinces were also brought to Rome via sea trade. So because of the size and scope of the Roman Republic, having a way to move both people and goods efficiently and reliably across the Mediterranean was crucial to the state. Now, early Rome relied on allies like the Carthaginians to transport their armies across the sea. But as the Republic grew, so did its need for ships, and Rome eventually found itself in direct competition with Carthage for mastery of the western Mediterranean. This competition would eventually erupt into the First Punic War, which lasted from 264 to 241 BC. In many ways, this war was a conflict over shipping, as each side attempted to dominate key trade routes and gain access to lucrative markets. The Romans had never fought a naval battle before, and they lost the first few engagements to the Carthaginians. But this defeat motivated the Romans to rapidly expand their shipbuilding capacity and learn new techniques to improve their ship designs. This brings us to one of the keys to Roman shipbuilding: efficiency. While the Romans lacked the extensive experience of the Phoenicians and Carthaginians in shipbuilding, they did have a well-organized government and a large population. The Roman Republic was able to use these assets to quickly build a large navy and train crews to operate them. We know that during the First Punic War, Rome built a large number of warships in a short amount of time. The historian Livy tells us that in a single season, the Romans built 350 quinquiremes, which were warships that were typically equipped with 5 banks of oars on each side. In addition to the ships themselves, the Romans invested in infrastructure, including shipbuilding facilities and training centers to produce sailors and marines. This emphasis on efficiency and organization allowed Rome to catch up with Carthage and eventually win the First Punic War. However, while the Romans had achieved naval superiority in the Mediterranean, their fleet was still inferior to that of the Carthaginians in terms of quality. Despite being larger in number, the Roman ships were slower and less maneuverable than the Carthaginian vessels. This weakness would become evident in the Second Punic War, which saw the famous conflict between Rome and Hannibal Barca. Hannibal's brilliant tactics allowed him to defeat several Roman armies on land, inflicting heavy losses. This defeat prompted Rome to invest heavily in its navy to secure its supply lines and counter potential Carthaginian naval attacks. During the Second Punic War, Rome constructed its first purpose-built naval base at the port of Lilybaeum in Sicily. This base served as a crucial hub for launching attacks on Carthaginian shipping and for protecting the grain shipments coming from the east. To counter Hannibal's threat, Rome realized that it needed to improve its ships to compete with the agile Carthaginian vessels. Enter Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa. Although he is most famous for his role in ending the civil war between Octavian and Mark Antony, Agrippa also played a crucial role in improving Roman naval power. After studying the ships of other Mediterranean powers, Agrippa introduced significant changes to Roman shipbuilding. Agrippa wanted to take advantage of the larger size of Roman ships compared to their competitors. And to do that, he focused on the design of the lateen sail. The traditional Roman ships had triangular sails, but Agrippa opted for a more aerodynamic and efficient lateen sail, which featured a curved lower edge. This innovation allowed the ships to utilize wind power more effectively, making them faster and more maneuverable. These improvements allowed the Roman navy to dominate the Mediterranean, contributing significantly to Rome's victory in the Second Punic War. But the Second Punic War was not the end of Rome's conflicts over maritime supremacy. Following the war, Rome found itself in conflict with the Kingdom of Pontus, located in what is now Turkey. This conflict, known as the Third Mithridatic War, led to Rome exerting full control over the Black Sea. During this war, the Romans encountered new ship designs used by the Pontic navy. In particular, the Pontic fleet featured fast and nimble vessels called laberna. The laberna had a shallow draft, making them ideal for navigating the shallow waters of the Black Sea. They were also equipped with a single large sail, allowing them to move quickly with the wind. The Pontic ships proved to be formidable opponents for the Romans, who were accustomed to the larger, heavier warships. This encounter once again highlighted the need for Rome to adapt and improve its shipbuilding techniques. In response to the challenge posed by the laberna, the Romans developed their own version of the light, fast ship. They named it a gallerata. Like the laberna, the gallerata had a single large sail and was designed for speed and maneuverability. However, the gallerata was larger than the laberna and had a deeper draft, giving it greater stability and carrying capacity. The introduction of these new ship designs marked a significant shift in Roman naval warfare. Rome moved away from its traditional reliance on large, slow, heavily armed ships to smaller, faster vessels that emphasized speed and maneuverability. This change in tactics was crucial to Rome's success in the Third Mithridatic War and subsequent naval conflicts. It also demonstrated the Roman ability to learn from its adversaries and incorporate new ideas into its naval strategy. Perhaps the greatest legacy of Roman shipbuilding was not the ships themselves, but the logistical systems, naval engineering, and strategic use of sea power that Rome developed. As the center of the Mediterranean, Rome controlled key choke points like the Strait of Messina and the Hellespont, allowing it to monitor and regulate trade in the region. These choke points became vital for maintaining security and order within the Mediterranean, ensuring the safety of trade routes and preventing piracy. By strategically positioning its naval forces, Rome could quickly respond to any threats or disturbances in these critical areas. Furthermore, Rome maintained a network of coastal fortifications along strategic stretches of coastline. These fortifications served multiple purposes. They provided refuge for ships during bad weather, offering safe havens where vessels could seek shelter. They also acted as storage facilities, allowing Rome to stockpile supplies and resources that were vital for sustaining naval operations. Additionally, these fortifications often housed naval workshops and shipyards where repairs could be carried out and new vessels could be constructed. Finally, Rome kept a standing navy, which was a departure from the practices of earlier Mediterranean powers. Having a permanent navy allowed Rome to maintain a constant presence at sea, deterring potential threats and responding swiftly to incidents as they occurred. This naval force consisted of both warships for offensive operations and auxiliary vessels for support tasks. By keeping a sizable and well-trained navy, Rome could effectively protect its vast empire and uphold its dominance in the Mediterranean. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing.